And I crossed the threshold, and this is the one where I knew God was protecting me because it could have gone bad. I crossed the threshold, and my partner's coming up right behind me, and we look around, and she's still talking, and she's like beat white, like afraid of something. And I look over, and the couch starts moving. He's underneath a blanket with the firearm in his hand.
Welcome to the Word Exchange. It's your host, Miguel Chavez. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, go ahead and follow us. Give us a good rating. I got my co-host with me, David Gano, in the house.
Thanks for tuning in. Su café está listo aquí.
We got a great show for you. We have with us a guest, Mariah Moreno.
Hi.
Mariah, thank you for joining us and taking your time out of your day to chit-chat and
Thanks for having me.
share. We want to thank Mirna for being here.
You're welcome.
All right. So, Mariah, so we've known you a long time. And that's one of the cool things about being in the church is you get to know these people for like the majority of their lives, you know? Not everyone, but even your husband, I had known him growing up. He's in the back right now chilling.
It's funny because we were talking about your father-in-law last night too. We did the podcast with Joe Castellon. He was talking about John Moreno.
Really?
Yeah, how he followed up on him.
Yeah, and he was a big impact on him as an early Christian.
When are
Yeah.
you guys going to post that?
Monday.
Oh, that's good.
And also these people, you know, out there listening, Mariah is a police officer and she has traveled the world. She has lived in different places such as Africa, Russia, right? Mm-hmm. And there's one more. Ukraine. So she's done a lot, and we're going to pick her brain. And if you want to go ahead and just start with your childhood.
I was born in Tucson at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base.
Okay.
Whew. The coffee's getting to me. I'm sorry.
So, Mariah, you were born in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
Davis-Monthan Air Force Base.
Yep.
You were born on base?
I was born on base. My parents were both in the Air Force at the time.
How are your parents?
They're doing well. They're living in Fort Worth right now. And
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So they're there during the storm that was going on?
Yes. Last
my
Thursday
gosh.
was when they said everything got back to working order. Some parts of Texas is still struggling, but Fort Worth is back up and running.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
How long have they been out there? I didn't even know they lived out there.
So they moved out there, probably...
Pre-COVID?
Right before we moved, so it was like June, July.
Yes, thank you. My
You're
gosh,
welcome.
I'm glad you're here.
Because I bought the tables and chairs from them.
Yes.
So that's why.
Yes, she did.
They blessed me.
Yep.
So
June, July time. He had an opportunity to go back to Iraq with Lockheed Martin, and he wanted mom to be able to stay with family. So
Oh, her family's out there?
my brother and his wife are out there. Lockheed Martin as well.
Oh.
A Lockheed Martin family, actually.
Wow.
So, how old were you when you first left the country?
How did that even fall? I was 3. I was 3 when we went to Russia,
Oh, wow.
and
So you didn't grow up in the U.S.
no.
So how long were you in Russia?
So we were there for 3.5 years.
So you were almost 7, and then you guys went where from there?
Right. I actually turned 8 in Namibia, Southwest Africa. I think we came back to the States for less than a year, and then we got sent out to Namibia, Southwest Africa, the next conference.
And what were you guys doing in Russia?
In Russia, we were planting a church.
Oh, okay.
We were sent from our local church here in Tucson to go and start a church.
Do you remember being in Russia?
I do. I've got some vivid memories. But you know, like the further you go back, the less detail you have. But like I have pictures in my mind of like where we were in certain situations, and like some like drastic situations where, you know, that just kind of stick in your mind because of the just because of unfortunately, a lot of negative, but a lot of good memories. But sometimes the negatives kind of stick with you.
But so Russia's communist country, right?
It was a communist country, and the Iron Curtain fell like probably maybe a couple years before we even got there, which was in '93. So there was still a lot of like unknown when it came to foreigners. So we were looked on as like, who are these people? There was a lot of questions being asked. And it got to the point where they're like, oh, well, you guys must be spies. And somebody said something, it got in the newspaper. Because where we were was in Kostromos, which was outside of Moscow. It's not really well known. It's on the Volga River. And they were saying, oh, word spreads so fast. So it turned up in the newspaper. We have these American spies in our midst, and they're trying to corrupt our children.
Did they have photos of you guys?
I don't remember if they had photos. I do remember that it was like a headline. My dad was like on the phone with pastor. Like I said, very vague memories. And I do remember hiding behind a couch one time when militia came by. Militia is their form of police, and they would come by and they would ask for papers from my mom. And my dad was out of town in Moscow picking up our, what do you call it? The money that was sent. What do you got?
Like Western Union or something?
Yeah, the Western Union.
Or wire transfer.
Yeah, he was down in Moscow.
I was going to say bread and potatoes for food.
Yeah, people don't...
He was out traveling for food.
People don't do wire transfers anymore, right? Everything's like on apps.
I know.
I think they're still done. So I think it's certain parts of the country. But for us, yeah, Cash App.
Right.
Zelle.
Apple Pay.
Apple Pay.
In Ukraine, the Western Union was popular too. So
okay.
and that was not too long ago.
So I'm just curious. So you guys weren't allowed to say that you were there pioneering a church, though, right? Like, how was Russia?
Well, when I was
time?
3, it was very closed off, and like I don't remember specifics. So I think that would be a question for my dad. But I do remember we were very close knit, and we rented a space that was like kind of not off the grid, but it wasn't like downtown, like, this big facade with like signs and stuff. We had a sign and everything, but it was kind of small, and we'd have people like, oh, that's really loud. I'd have people like meet in the top, and we'd sing songs, and we'd have worship service and then break, and then we'd actually go out outreaching too. So it was almost like there was that open door right when the Iron Curtain dropped, and everyone is like scrambling, trying to figure out their life after communism, where there was that just openness. And I felt like it was, and I was 3, but looking back, I'm saying, looking back, I know we were on the streets preaching, we had bullhorns, you know what I mean? And I know there's some places that don't even allow that. So, and they were cracking down at the time. But there was an opportunity, and I felt like there was an open door in that moment.
Was that better, the audio?
Yeah, this is so
cool.
much better.
Yeah.
So after Russia, you guys went. Where did you guys go? You guys went to Africa. So you guys went straight to Africa from there.
Yeah,
that's South Africa, right?
Yeah, it's right above South Africa.
Okay.
On the west
How many
coast.
years did you live there?
5.5 years. Those were the years that I really grew up. Those were my childhood. The majority of my childhood was.
So what was that
Africa.
like growing up in Africa?
It was wonderful. It was
8 to 13?
It was
Wow.
14.
14?
It was just the best childhood ever. I mean, we'd go out in the savannah, and like it was just like the Lion King, but we grew up in it.
Right.
It was just gorgeous, beautiful.
The
The people.
Thornberries? Remember the Thornberries, that cartoon? No? Nickelodeon? Remember that? That was her, dude.
That's so
Nigel
funny.
and the Thornberries, I think that's what it's called. You remember that one?
And they found him out. That's where they found him. They found him out in the the boonies, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So stupid. But yeah, I mean, we loved it. We bought land. We were building a house on the land. We applied for our citizenship.
Really?
Yeah, we were gonna stay there.
Was English the primary language there?
Yeah,
Oh, it was. Oh, okay. So you didn't learn another language?
we were required to learn German in school. So, and that was because Windhoek, where we lived, was a German colony. Like, it was a German pioneered colony. So there was a lot of Germans there. And then when the apartheid broke, they basically, oh, well, you know, we're still going to make you learn German.
So sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Not anymore.
No sprechen.
Not anymore. No, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that, I think that happens with every language. But yeah, those were the greatest years. Africa is just the people, the language, the music, the spirit.
How was the food out there?
Orange chicken. Well, they have
Chicken.
They have like everything you can get here. But they have, and I meant to say peanut butter chicken. Actually,
okay.
I've had that.
Peanut butter
I think
chicken.
your mom made it.
Yes.
On one New
she
Year's.
got the recipe
one
from
New Year's celebration we had.
She got the recipe from a lady in the church in Namibia, and it was just so
There's like
good.
veggies right in there with
Yep.
the peanut butter,
Yep.
the chicken.
I
Yep.
want some peanut butter
You've
chicken.
had it, huh?
I was
yeah.
gonna say, so can
It
your
has
mom
like-
come back and make
And it
peanut
has
butter
like a
chicken?
little, like a oily,
Yes.
like
Consistency,
mixed in.
yeah.
Just get the
It's like a-
recipe from your mom and make it for us.
You know what I'm saying? Oh.
Housewarming
butter,
party with
peanut
peanut butter.
butter.
Well, text her and we'll
chicken.
make it after. I'm just kidding. After the podcast. We'll,
Peanut butter, and chicken.
You play too much.
Peanut butter and jelly. Remember that song?
Yeah.
Peanut butter
Yeah.
jelly time.
Peanut
Peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter.
Peanut butter chicken.
peanut butter jelly with a baseball bat. Remember that banana would sing it?
Yes.
Remember that banana? It's like, dude, I had some drug issues, man. That banana was always high, bro.
Now
Oh
we
my
know.
gosh.
Anyway, okay, so
So from Africa, you go to
Ukraine.
Ukraine.
Yeah, so from Africa, we actually came back. We got enrolled in school. We did high school. And
Here
then,
in Tucson.
yeah, here in Tucson. And then,
I remember when you
And
guys
that's
went
when
to Ukraine.
that's when you met her.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was back from Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was right around the time I left the church. So you said 2005.
Mm-hmm.
I left like right at the beginning of 2005.
Wow. That's crazy.
So you were back for how long?
Sheesh.
1-2 years.
No, we were back for longer than that.
Really? You
Yeah.
left when you were 16 then?
I'm trying to remember how old I was. I think I was 18 when we left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or gonna be turning 18. It was like 17, 18. So, and then we got. It's funny because I didn't know until the Thursday morning of conference. He talked to us and was like, "Hey, we're going to Ukraine." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, it was.
Did your brother Ryan go with you? Wow.
It was just me and Ryan, because at the time my sister was dating seriously with Tim.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tim actually proposed before we left. So
You could lock her down.
yeah,
Like, you ain't leaving.
proposed and then got married to her before he left. So it was just me and my brother.
So how was that experience in Ukraine?
That personally was tumultuous for the first year for sure, and that's because I was a rebel. You
were a rebel?
Oh yeah.
What?
I didn't know Mariah could be a rebel.
Wow.
In my way,
elaborate.
a rebel in my way. You guys are like your
about to get
your
nitty-gritty.
imaginations are going.
Okay, so what was going on?
So what's a rebel in your world?
Okay, so when we went over there, I knew I was 17, gonna turn 18, and I already had a job. I had a job for like 2 weeks, and I was getting good, and I was like getting established and stuff. And then all of a sudden, my dad's like, "Hey, we're going to Ukraine." And so I felt like I was kind of pushed into doing it without my own choice. And then I kind of took that really personally, and I kind of had this bitterness set inside me, and I didn't admit to it because on the outside it's like, oh, you're doing this great thing, you're going with your parents, and I like the attention and all this other stuff because that's just how the flesh is. I was just so like, yeah, we're gonna do this thing, or we're gonna go preach the gospel, we're going again, all this stuff. But when I actually get over there, and you have to live, with your parents and stuff, it kind of came to a head. My attitude towards them, how I talked to them, like everything was just coming to a head because I was still so like bitter. Like I felt like I was becoming my own adult. Like I was becoming an adult, and I should have my own. You were starting to
establish your own life.
Yeah, I should have my own choice, and so I felt like they kind of didn't give me the choice.
I was going to ask you. You didn't. I mean, you were 18, right?
Yeah. Well, I was turning 18 the next year.
Oh, so you weren't.
I was kind of like.
Do you think if you were 18 before that you would have stayed?
At the time, I would have gone with them in a heartbeat if they told me. It was the idea that they didn't tell me until the last minute. So I really didn't have a choice. So, but still, I mean, I allowed that to fester and and I kind of denied that it was even there. I was in this denial, like, oh no, I'm all good. And, in our self-righteous mind, we're like, oh, I'm doing a good thing. I'm just going to put this to the side and I'm not going to worry about it. And it's just going to work itself out. Well, it didn't work itself out. It was still in my heart. And so it just started kind of coming to the surface. And, my dad would want to go on outreaches. Come on, let's get our stuff together. We're going to go on an outreach. And I'm like, forget that. I'd come up with excuses, and he's like, what's wrong with you? This is not like you. And like, what do you mean it's not like you? You don't know me. And like, you know what I mean? It was just explode on him. And he's like, what the heck is going on with this chick? Yeah. So I was like going through kind of like an angst, and I just wanted to be treated like an adult, and I wanted to have my choice, and I felt like that choice was ripped away from me, and so instead of going to God and like repenting, like, hey, I've got this bitterness towards my dad and all these issues and stuff, and please help me, he would have taken that and I would have been pressed forward, and that's fine, and move on. But I allowed it to fester. So for the first year, it was just
bumping heads
with my dad.
I could imagine that.
And my mom too.
Yeah, in our fellowship, being sent out is like the ultimate ministry, right? That's how people view it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just, by face value. Oh, if you get sent out, man, dude, you guys are, especially internationally.
Yeah.
So there's this immense amount of pressure on you guys to like fulfill that calling, to go and do it and not fight it and be the kid that goes with the family and giving up her friends, giving up her job, giving up everything. Mm-hmm. I wonder how many other pastors' kids felt that same way going out into the field and saying, you know what, I am bitter at my parents for forcing me to go. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you would say to encourage them on what to do in that situation?
If I was talking to myself back then, if I was talking to anyone who's going through this, I would be like, dude, slow down. Don't be in denial. Tell God what your true feelings are. And then after you tell God what your feelings are, like vent to him, because he's there for you. You can give it all, lay it all out, get mad, yell, do whatever you have to do to tell him what's going on inside your heart. Then he's going to give you the wisdom to talk to your parents and make it straight with them. Because it says in the word, when you have an issue with your brother, go and deal with it. Mm-hmm. If you're in the wrong, go and apologize and get it sorted out. But if you feel like you have been wronged, it's also important to tell that person what it is that is bothering you. Because I feel bad for my dad. He didn't know what was going on. He was just like, you're just being rebellious. Get up, we're going to go and outreach and stop giving me the hassle. He didn't understand what was going on inside because I didn't want to talk to him about it because I knew I would blow up on him. But if I would have just been honest with myself, this is how I'm feeling, and gone to God first. God, this is what I'm feeling. Find that quiet place, get in that closet, yell it, and this is what I'm feeling. He doesn't even know it. You can say whatever you want, because he's there to listen to you. Once you get that off your chest and you pour it on his throne, you pour it at his feet, then he's going to start giving you, number one, you're going to feel amazing because everything is going to come out. Everything, you know what?
He's a great counselor.
He's a great counselor. I'm not self-righteous. I'm not this perfect person in porcelain. I am messed up inside. I am bitter. I'm angry. You know what I mean? You need to be honest and just say that to God and just tell him, because he wants to know, and he knows it already. He just wants you to release it to him. It's like, that's how you release your burdens, is you bring it up and you just release it at his feet. After that, you're going to feel amazing. You're going to slow down. And then he's going to give you wisdom to tell your parents, because you need to tell your parents. You have to bring it out to him. And it's funny because they'll be amazed how, and you'll be amazed how calmly you'll be able to tell them, look, when you did that, this really hurt me. Or when we moved, this is why I was so mad, blah, blah, blah. You know, just sit down with them, be honest with them, because if they know where you're coming from, then they'll be like, you know, oh, I didn't know you thought that way. I'm sorry, you know, whatever. Because in the end, on my story, I blew up. I blew up on my dad, and it was bad. It was bad. And I didn't know that I was capable of that. And that was another thing I was denial about, is I am so capable of anything and everything that is horrible and evil, because I'm a human. So I blew up on my dad, and finally, in my anger, told him why I was mad. And it was like this moment of silence where he was just looking at me like, oh my gosh, Yaya, I had no idea. He called me, I had no idea you felt that way. And he's like, I'm sorry. Like, and it was released in that moment, but it didn't have to get to the point where it did, where I was just walking on a street in Ukraine and 32 below zero, mad, pissed off, walking the other direction from my dad, telling him I'm not coming home. Like, I mean, it didn't have to get that bad, but it did.
I feel like a lot of people don't understand that they can come to God that way. They feel like they have to have this organized prayer when they talk to God. Like, oh, God, I thank you for... a lot of times, you know, when you're that real and emotional with God, those are some of the best prayer moments, because you're not really holding back and putting up a facade of prayer. You're saying, this is really how I feel, and I'm really upset about this, you know, and that's okay. I like what you said right there, is because a lot of people don't realize that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be confused when you're talking to God. I mean, one scripture that keeps coming to my mind is, in our weakness, he is made strong. And I know they preached about this in the revival. They've been mentioning it here and there, and it's been really just kind of like marinating. And what's coming to my mind is, like, the moment we express our weakness, he's able to be strong in our lives.
Yep.
But you have to show that you're coming to him in a weakness, you know, a weak point, in order for him to be strong and move, you know. So
that's so like opposite of what we think we should be. We should be squared away. We should be righteous. We should be good. We should be doing everything we should be. And behind the scenes, we're broken inside, and we're not admitting it. Yeah. And like, God is like, I don't even know you. Like, that's my story when I got saved, is I realized just how far away God was away from me. Like, he had turned his face away from me completely. And I've lived my whole life raised in church. I know the word. I know, you know what I mean? I know all these, I've been preached and given so much knowledge and wisdom and sermons and guidance and love, and, you know, and yet my heart was completely away from God. And that broke me, that shook me, that just kind of woke me up. Like, I'm so broken. And I didn't even realize it. And that was devastating, because I was like, I was so blind to what I was. And that was just, that was the kicker, was like the person on the street dealing with heroin, who is honest with himself and asking God every night to help him, is more close than I was. Someone who was raised in church. Does that make sense? Like, God gives grace to the humble. Yeah. So much. And it was a reality. And I saw just how unhumble I was. So that was like, that was a kicker.
Yeah, no, it's, and that's awesome. I think that is such a great testimony, just that part, because I remember noticing when I came back to church, I remember I came back so thirsty for God, you know, and I'm looking around people that have been in church for so long, and they're just comfortable with just being there, but it almost felt like they're there in the presence of God, but they don't really know it. And I was just like, man, that's crazy, and that's a scary place to be in, you know. Because as soon as I walked into the church, I felt the presence of God. I had been away from church and God for so long that when I walked in, I think it was like right during the worship service that I walked in, and they're, you know, worshiping, and right away I felt it. Like I felt that, the presence of God, you know, and I was happy. I'm like, this is where I need to be. So that I'm sure that'll speak to a lot of people. You know, you should share that more often.
So you get saved after an experience.
Yeah, I got saved in Ukraine.
In Ukraine. That is insane, because here you are your whole entire life. You're doing like what people dream of ministry wise to do, you know? Mm-hmm. And your family is like there doing it. And it took that one moment where it was just weakness and frustration to really show that maybe, you know, maybe your heart isn't right with God. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I wouldn't change that for the world. I mean, we were there for a year and a half. We came back, and, you know, a bunch of other stuff happened with our family, but I wouldn't change that experience for the world. I'm so glad we went, because I would have never gone through that. I would have never, just like you said, I would have never
even the
come to
relationship
that.
with your father, I think.
Yep.
You would have never, I mean, it could have happened later, but you would have never been able to like establish that closeness. Yeah. Because, I mean, I could imagine, I mean, I haven't had any of those close discussions with my parents at all my entire life, you know. My mom has always been there for me, and we've always, you know, been real close. But never on the level of a ministry where you're serving God with one another, and that frustration of it's a weird dynamic, you know. I can't really explain it, but that's an amazing story. So,
what language do they speak in the Ukraine?
Russian, and they also speak Ukrainian towards the outskirts. But where we were living was Kyiv, so the main language is Russian.
Pasho.
And you don't speak Russian?
Что? Чуть-чуть. A little bit. I was never fluent. My dad was getting close, but I just learned. I remembered from Russia little words that would click to my mind, and then when I went to Ukraine, I pretty much learned street Russian, necessity, kind of like what Corey said, is like when you're hungry, you figure something out. So I was just innovative in speaking with people and trying to learn. And I actually went to Odessa, Ukraine with a friend of mine who just spoke Russian. And I told her, speak Russian to me the whole time. I didn't know English. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. So
when you came back to the States from Russia, Ukraine is in Russia, right?
No, Ukraine is
near Russia.
Yeah, Ukraine
Kiev,
is
Ukraine, right?
Kiev, Ukraine is right outside of Poland. It's in the area, but it's not in Russia.
I think a lot of people will, I mean, not group it, but kind of, it's that same vicinity, right?
Yeah, it used to be part of the Soviet Union.
Okay, so when you came back and you're trying to get in the police department, did that ever come up that you were living in, you know, that place?
Russia?
Yeah.
Russia? Like, was that a thing? Or
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, you're talking about for a background?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, it did come up, but because it's a local agency, they didn't have to do any federal checks like that. And then I don't think they were just looking at job history, and they didn't need to know like the addresses, because I think it went to a certain year, and I think I was past that year, so they're like. But yeah, if it was within the 5 or 10 years previously, then I would have had to include it.
Yeah, I think when I applied, it was like 7 years of history.
Yeah.
Went back 7 years. Yeah.
It changes. I think now it's up to 10.
Oh, wow. Cool. So you're back in the States. You're saved. What happens?
So, as you know, nothing comes easy. I'm like still learning how to trust God, still learning how to be vulnerable with God. And that's the main thing, is like I would tell any church kid who's growing up in church and trying to serve God, and they're trying to figure this thing out, you need to know that you need to learn how to trust God for yourself individually and be vulnerable with God. As long as you're vulnerable with God and you're straight with Him, you can take on the world. Like, you can do any kind of ministry you want as long as you take that time and stay vulnerable with God. So I was still learning, and I was like coming to the point where, yeah, I've been hearing this all my life, but now I'm actually paying attention. Now I'm actually like listening to the Word of God preached. Now I'm actually trying to figure out what God wants to do with my life personally. And I started separating my life's kind of journey, I guess, my life's path from my parents for the first time. Because I growing up, you think that you're pretty much riding your coattails of your parents, and you're like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is probably what I'm going to be doing, for my life. But I never, I never looked at myself and was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a pastor's wife, and this is what's going to happen. No, it's like, at that point, I was like, okay, now I want to live for God. I want to do whatever God wants me to do. So whether that be staying in Tucson, whether that be, it doesn't matter pretty much. So I was starting to learn my personal relationship with God. It's crazy how, like, growing up in church, I just then started working on my relationship with God for reals, not just,
I feel like there's a lot of church kids and people that, like you said, are there all the time. And there has to come a point in their own life where they're like, I need more. I can't piggyback off my parents. I can't piggyback off of my friends that are saved. Because once life starts getting real and you're in the adult world and you have to work a job and you have to miss church and you have to do all this stuff, you got to serve God on your own, because it's easy being dragged to church every service, with your parents and, going through the motions. But once you're on your own, you have to have that relationship.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy how God had me the whole time, because and then looking back, I know He did, because I knew I wanted to do something with my life, but I wasn't sure what it was. And so I was kind of like, God, I need direction. And you know what? I'm just going to go one day at a time, and I'm just going to learn you. I need to learn you. I need to learn what this is about, pretty much. And then next thing you know, my parents were sent to Tanzania to plant a church over there. And my brother at this time was married, and my sister was married. And so it was just me. And I'm over 18 at this point. So if I were to go with my parents, I don't know if you guys know the protocol, but you actually have to be younger than 18 to be able to go with your parents over, otherwise,
in order for them to like support you, right?
Right. Yeah. Because it makes sense. You're now an adult. You kind of have to.
Yeah.
And then my dad talked to me about it. It's funny because my parents were like, "Hey, if just pray about it. If you really want to go, and talk to Pastor Warner, tell him it's really on your heart. You can come with us." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I don't think it's."
You don't think it's on your heart?
Yeah, I didn't know how to tell them, but I didn't want to like hurt them in any way. So I just kind of, I'll pray about it and stuff. And something inside, I just knew that no, I'm staying. This is definitely. I'm staying. So knowing that I was staying kind of put some like fire under my, like, what am I going to do type of thing. So I started, looking for jobs and
because a lot of women, like growing up in the church, they don't move out of their parents' house until they get married.
Yeah.
They don't get out of the nest until, they're working towards that goal, with a relationship. So you have to leave your parents' house because they're leaving the U.S.
Yeah.
Dang, man, that's gotta be
scary.
So
I was like, well, it was, but I had God, so I was like, well, here we go. And it's funny because even with God, we're human, and so we're like, oh crap, what am I gonna do, type of thing. So, but I can only imagine how that was gonna be if I didn't have God. I'm like, whew, be flipping out. So I just prayed about it. Just, God, I need direction. And then with that prayer, every day I would just go on and look for, things I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be a graphics designer, so I actually did some courses in college for art and things like that. And I was like, nah, it's not really, I don't want to make it a job. It's kind of a hobby thing. I like Yeah. So decided, no, that's not it. And then I was on the internet one time just kind of looking for opportunities. I thought I wanted to go into the Air Force, so I went as far as the MEPS. Actually took the test and went as far as MEPS, and just something just wasn't right. And I was like, God, I need a sign. And I felt like Gideon, where I just wanted that fleece. You know what I mean? I wanted a sign showing that this is where you want me to be. And so, and that was my heart. So I ended up failing MEPS for a small glitch. And the recruiter was like, oh, no, it's just a glitch. You can get it fixed. No problem. I'll tell you what to do. And there's something in the system, and then I'll just fix it. And I'm like, no, you know what? Forget it. I took it as a sign. I was like, no, I'm just not into it, because I don't have any direction. I don't have any particular jobs I want to do in the Air Force. It's just an opportunity, and I'm just not going to do it. It's like, oh, you sure? You sure? I'm like, no, I'm just not. So I kept searching online, and I found an opening for the police department. And I was just like, ooh, I wonder, and started getting curious, talked to my parents about it. And the first reaction was, you're going to be amazing, or, oh my God, what are you doing? So it was like I was getting two different responses. And so I again, I laid it at God, and I'm just like, hey, this is interesting. I want to see what's going on. And my dad was like, hey, there's a guy I know who's retired. Go talk to him. Doug Marcotte.
Yeah, Doug.
Yeah. I got to throw his name out there, so sorry, Doug. But basically introduced me to him. We knew him. He was a old family friend of ours for a long time, but I didn't know that he was a retired cop. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to talk to this guy and see what this thing is about.
He'd be great to get on the podcast.
Get him.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know Doug Marcotte? No?
Yeah.
Bald guy. Pretty tough.
Yeah.
Does he wear glasses?
Yeah, sometimes.
He has a son that looks just like him, but with hair.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Get him.
Yeah.
He'll probably have some crazy stories.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, for sure. So I was like, I'm going to talk to this guy, and I'm going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want him to tell me the worst thing he's been part of. I want him to either convince me, or it's two things. He's either going to convince me to join, or he's going to convince me this is not for me. So I want to know the real thing. So he did. He told me the good, the bad, and the ugly, and he went as far as actually showing me pictures of things he's been involved in, some scenes he's been on. And I found out later he's trying to convince me not to go in, because I found out later, but it didn't work for whatever reason. Everything he was showing, I was just like, oh, yeah. And it just stirred something in me, I was pumped about it. So I was like, yeah, well, can you show me how to shoot? And so we went out shooting, showed me how to shoot, went to the academy, showed me what it's going to look like, how I'm going to be able to train, what am I going to have to do to pass. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then I went on a ride-along. He's like, you need to go on at least 2 ride-alongs to see what you're getting into. Mm-hmm. So the first ride-along, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. And it wasn't for the reason I thought it was going to be. I was, driving fast, or, after some bad guys and stuff. It was mainly for, there was this one call where it was a check welfare is what we call it. And this guy was on a bus stop, and he ended up busting his head open. And we're trying to figure out, well, how this happened. He's bleeding from the top down. He was like, because head wounds bleed pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this guy, he was either assaulted or something. And what it came out to be was he was just drunk, and he was just so drunk that he fell over and he cracked his head open, really bad. And we had 3 officers there. We had 4 paramedics. And I stepped back for a minute, and I'm looking at everyone as like, okay, all right. And, I'm not going to give names, but he's like, hey, bud, just go ahead and open your eyes for me. Keep your eyes open. Okay, is that your shoes right there? Those are some good-looking shoes. Now, stay with me now. And they're all good. The care and the concern for this one guy. And I'm looking back, and there's like 6 people around this one guy who's obviously going through a lot, just busted his head open. And for me, I was like, man, if I can be a part of that, like, that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's so cool. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch shows like Columbo. I don't know, that might be, it was before my time, but my grandfather was really old. Columbo was a detective, and he was real clever, but he didn't look clever. He was this Italian with a glass eye, and he always walked around with a cigarette, and he was really short, and he didn't sound very intelligent. So people would underestimate him. But he was so clever, he was so good at what he did, that he would make the criminals that he would go after confess. He was a homicide detective.
Okay.
He would make them confess, and once he would make them confess, then he'd bring in the cops, and and they would cuff him and stuff. He was really, look him up, Detective Columbo. So I remember watching this and just shows about even Cops. Remember the show Cops?
Yeah.
So like when I was a kid, I would watch that, and I thought it was so cool.
It's a long time show, huh?
But I grew up in the hood.
I love that show too.
Yeah, the song, "Bad Boys, what you want, what you gonna do?"
No way.
Remember when we were driving downtown?
We went downtown, and I was in the back seat, and he was in the front. He started bumping Bad Boys, and we would pull up to anybody standing there, and they do one of two things: they start dancing, or they start looking around like what's going on, And we bump it so loud, yeah, and they start dancing, and then we take off. It's like 30 people.
We were trying to do it to Cops too. Like we kept trying to pull next to the cops, but it was so
Did they
hard.
laugh? Come on.
Did we do it?
I don't think we were
no,
able
we
to.
were trying to, but we weren't able to because there were so many cars, and it was like on a Saturday night, and this is before COVID, so there was a lot of out and stuff.
They wouldn't laugh. They'd be like, oh. But
should do a
amongst
YouTube video like that.
themselves, they would laugh, but they wouldn't.
Do a
So-
ride along podcast.
I had a ride along,
So what I was gonna say is, growing up in the hood, growing up in my neighborhood where I grew up, everything I knew about cops was just through TV. But I would hear all these other ugly stories about things that cops would do, and cops are crooked. So when the cops would come around, as I started growing up, becoming a teenager, I was afraid of the cops because I thought the cops had it in for me because of everything that I would hear. Cops are the bad guys. They're going to racially profile you. And so I remember we would be walking around at nighttime, and here would come a cop and turn on the lights and ask us, "What are you guys doing?" And at the time I'd start thinking like, what? Why are you messing with me? Like, why are you even assuming that I'm a criminal?
Right.
I look back now, it's because of the way I was dressed, the people that I was hanging around with. And yes, I was up to no good. And I was living in an area.
Why are you so good at your job?
So there was this one cop. He used to come visit me and my brother. And I used to kind of get embarrassed. I didn't want him coming over to the house because I didn't want my neighbors to ask questions and be like, why is there a cop going over to your house a lot and talking to you guys? Because we knew the drug dealers, and we knew all the criminals in the neighborhood. So, but he would come over and he would talk to us, and he would tell us I remember him telling me and my brother, there's something special about you guys. And I don't want you guys to throw away your lives. Education is important. And he would come and talk to us, and he was a really good guy, So there was a few times where my brother and I got in trouble, and he cut us some slack.
Yeah.
So he was really cool. Hold on, I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, okay. So the whole thing was that, cops are, for one, they're human. They're human because there's even adults that are, I usually hear them say things like, F the police and the whole wanting to defund the cops. And a lot of people, I hear this a lot, that a lot of cops use their authority. They take advantage of it, and there's a lot of racist cops and prejudiced cops. And to be honest, I never really ever experienced that. I had been pulled over one time. We had weapons that we didn't need to, illegal weapons in our car, in the car with this other guy that we were with. But I was like 17. And during my teenage years, that's when I was, a criminal and doing all kinds of stupid things. But I remember these cops, they pulled us over. They found all the weapons in the car, yet they were still being nice. And I remember this female cop was trying to talk to my brother. My brother was like, you don't have to talk. Or he's like, I plead the fifth. I have the right to remain silent. I'm not going to answer any of your questions. And then she starts walking up to me. And my brother's like, don't tell her anything, David. And she's like, well, do you have a law book on you? Yeah, you guys don't have to talk to me. I would like to talk to you guys, but you guys don't have to. But my brother was being such a jerk to her. And she was trying to do her job, but my brother kept saying things, And so anyway, I know you. How long have you been a cop?
It's going to be 4 years.
Okay. And in my experience, I don't think I've ever really experienced anything, I guess, unlawfully. Was that the right word? Unlawful, yeah. Like with the cops. I never really had a bad experience with cops. Never. Yet I heard all these other stories, So would you be able to shed light on that? Like maybe the cops that you've worked with, have you ever seen anything crooked or?
Yeah, so crooked, I mean, in so many levels, but we're required to call it out and call it out for what it is. You can stop it when you know something is going a certain way, and you can do it in a certain way where it's between you and that officer. You know what's up, and you convict them on a personal level, and it never rises to the public stage. And yeah, I've had that experience before, and they check me, So I'm gonna give an example because it's from my experience. I was on a DUI situation. It was my call, and a particular female had 2 children in the vehicle. She ended up, hitting a couple of objects and totaling the vehicle on the third object she struck. And they were high impact, high speed objects. And it was a wonder the kids actually survived because they were asleep in their car seats. And I got really mad at her and I started yelling at her. And anyone from an outside perspective is like, oh, that cop is like too much and she went overboard and she didn't have to patronize. You know what I mean? Everyone has their visual. They don't know what the situation was. They don't know coming into it. They have a snippet and I don't know if anyone filmed me or anything, but if they did, they would probably say, oh, you're being too much.
Well, sometimes I feel like people forget that cops are human. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And my partner was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he pretty much walked up to her, oh, let me talk to you for a minute. And then he kind of motioned me to back off. And for a second, it kind of snapped that trigger. Like, whoa, maybe I was, take a breath. I was getting a little too, because I was getting emotionally connected to what I was doing.
And I think to second what you're saying or support what you're saying, cops have to hold a higher standard.
Yeah.
So for you to get emotional, you were starting to lose that higher standard. You were coming down to her level, essentially, being driven by your emotions. So, I mean, that's a good partner, to like snap you out of it.
And then, I snapped him out of it a couple of times too. So, you really just have to go with what your convictions are, and you really need to call that person out on an individual basis. So that's what I would say to that is like, you need to have a good partner who can like keep you in check, because we're, like you said, we're all human. We get to that part where we're just like,
Because it's kind of the same with Christians too. If you think about it, you know, when people like, for example, like in the workplace, you know, and every now and then you mess up or you'll do something and people start calling you out like, hey, I thought you were a Christian.
Right.
Hey, yeah, that's why I'm not a Christian. That's why I don't like to go to church, because they're all the same, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's the same. I mean, I just feel like people need to like chill out.
So I applied for the police department a while ago, and I did a ride along in Moreno, and I think I told you this story.
Yeah, you did.
It's a pretty awesome story because it really made me excited about, you know, trying to join the police department. So I went on this ride along. There was a call for a missing child, and I was with one of my good friends. I was his barber actually, and he was a cop for Mariah. So we show up to the house, and the babysitter had left the back sliding door open. And I think the baby was like 4 years old, 3 years old. I'm maybe 2, still in diapers, but he could walk. And the baby was nowhere to be found. Like, we went through every bedroom, every door, closet. It got kind of scary because we went to the backyard and there was a jacuzzi there, and the cover was over the jacuzzi. And there was like 10 cops in there and me. And I'm like looking around, and the jacuzzi's right there. And I kind of like, my heart sank a little bit. I was like, and they opened it and there was nothing in there. And then we're all the way out in Dove Mountain. So we were pretty far out there. And in the backyard, there was like a golfing range. So it was just like open field. And there was houses on both sides. And so all the cops are just doing a perimeter, you know, search and just calling out, and hopefully we could hear something. And so I'm with that guy. His name's Chris. I'm with Chris, and we're just, you know, canvassing the area. My adrenaline's pumping. I want to find this kid. I want to make a good impression, you know. And I hear like a cat like meowing, and I'm like, oh, that's the baby, you know? And he's like, no, that's a cat, man.
Your mind is like.
I was like, all right. So we keep going. We go all the way back. Nothing. No one finds him. It's like we've been searching for like 45 minutes. And the longer the search goes, the more chances that something's, you know, bad has happened or gonna happen. So we go back to the house, and the sergeant's there, and they're like, did you guys, you know, anything? I was like, I heard a yelp. Like it was a cat, you know? I heard like a little cat. He's all, did you just go check? And so I was like, we're like, all right. So we go head back to that house, and it starts getting louder. Yeah. And then we start going, and it's the kid crying.
Wow.
And I heard him across the field. And so we get there. He's in the backyard of someone else's house that's not even home. The gate was open, and the pool's right behind him. And he's at the gate just crying, you know?
So he crawled?
He walked.
Oh, how old was he?
Like 2.
Oh,
and a
okay.
half. In his diaper, no clothes, just a diaper. He just walked out the back door, walked out the gate, and just explored, and then got stuck in someone else's yard.
Glad you found him.
And it was really cool because when I came back out, and they like
Detective Miguel,
they debriefed, right?
You found the baby,
and they're all, who found him? And I was like, he's all, oh, Chris is all, my ride along found him.
Yay.
Like my ride along, you know, like like it was him. I was like, yeah, you know.
That was a good
I
feeling.
heard, you know, I have super hearing. And he's like, is this something you really want to do? And I just felt, you know, you felt good. And then we drove off, and then we parked in the desert and debriefed again with everyone. And yeah, that was my first ride along story.
Sick.
You know? That's pretty cool.
I found
dude.
a missing child. My first ride along.
That's sick.
I want to be a cop now. I want to go find.
But their
children.
testing process was so hard because you have to do the run first, and then, man, I butched.
You do the run first.
I butchered the run. Butchered the run, man. There was so many more fit people. You know, there was this one guy who was a tank. He had like abs through his shirt. You could see his abs.
Yeah, I've seen some really like fat cops though. Like, how do they do it?
Well, you have to qualify when you get in the academy. Once you're in,
That's it.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement to stay in shape. It's not.
If you're a good one, yeah, you better stay in shape. But it's discretion.
it's just to get in. You know, That's how
you're
those cops are able to-
encouraged by your department to stay fit, but it's not a requirement.
So now you're a cop for 4 years. Is there any patrol stories that you want to share with?
I mean, we've had a lot of crazy stories, but
Anything that you can?
I can share some stories.
What okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll just let you share
It's all right.
whatever you want to share.
Well, I mean, okay, so when you look at someone, you think their strength is a certain way, and sometimes you underestimate them, how strong they are. There was this one call that we went to where the mom was actually just asking for help, like, hey, my son's at it again. He's flipping out. He's not on his meds. I need someone here. I need someone here to take him. So we're like, okay, it's going to be an involuntary committal, and basically you'll be taking him to a mental hospital to get some help. So we're going in there expecting, he's 16, so we're expecting a kid to go into his room and, pick him up and take him and what have you. So then she calls us back. We're en route. It's my call. And typically when I say it's my call, I'm the IC, so I call up for it first, and I'm the responsible officer. So I got 2 other people coming my way, and I'm heading to the house to get this 16-year-old kid. Well, the mom calls back again, oh my gosh, he's breaking stuff. I need someone here now. So we're like, okay. So now she's in danger, so we go code 3, which is, lights and sirens. We get there, and we're looking for the kid, and we go inside the house. We see this kid standing by the table, just really calm, really quiet. He's just looking at us. And then we look over into the kitchen, and there his mom is, and she's like beet red. She's like, her eyes are like
Crying,
saucers.
right?
She's been crying, and
Yeah.
she's like pointing, like, just take him. And we're looking at this kid. He's got nothing in his hands. He's just standing there looking at us, like, and you would think,
How tall was he?
probably 6'9".
6'9"?
I know, 5'9".
Oh,
5'9".
And you
5'9".
said he was about
5'9".
16?
Almost 6.
5'9".
He was 16.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, and he's really skinny, lanky. He's like 5'9", not 6'9", but 5'9", almost 6. Like, he's really skinny, and he's like 16-year-old kid, and we're like, okay.
Average size.
So we go in to chat with him. Hey, so-and-so, what's going on today? What can you tell us what's going on? We're trying to get an idea of what's going on with him. He's just speaking calmly to us. And this was one of the creepiest calls because we did not know what to expect. And those are the creepiest calls. So in less than 2 seconds flat, he's flipping out on us now. So we're so close, and we're chatting with him, and then all of a sudden, arms everywhere. So now he's fighting, and he's like flailing at us for no reason. So we already had a plan going in. I was going to go high. My partner was going to go low. We switched in the last second. He went high. I went low. And this kid, we ended up struggling for at least like 10 to 15 minutes, trying to get a hold of him. And he was so like tense, and it was a passive resistance, but he was like so tensed up. He had so much strength that it totally just threw us out of whack. So we're struggling with this guy on the floor, like rolling.
Wow.
And I ended up going, so I went low and my partner went high. So we were like struggling, and he's like kicking me, and like, it was just crazy. It took about 3 of us to get him under control. And I was just looking back at it. I was like, this guy's so skinny. I mean, he's tall, but he's so skinny and so lean, and like, I didn't even expect that strength out of him. So that was kind of a crazy call.
So when are you in your right to start like punching them as a cop?
Well, in your right, basically, if he steps in your space and he's threatening you in a physical way, then you have every right to push him off of you. So that's a physical touch right there.
I have
But not
seen
punch.
those. I have seen those videos though, where like the cops they'll rush somebody and then they'll start like punching
Wailing at
them.
them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if this is a violent criminal who's actively resisting and may have something on his, I mean, if it depends on the circumstance.
So like in that circumstance, would you I mean, did you throw punches or you were just holding him?
No, we were trying to get him under control. That was what we were doing.
So no punches?
No punches.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess it's all in the training, but in my mind, a civilian mind, just like, punch him in the face real quick, daze him, and then,
If he would have struck us, or if he would have struck
you said
his
he was
mom,
trying to kick you, right?
Yeah, he was flailing and flailing his arms and not listening, and so we're like, okay, well, calm down, and then we try to get him under control. Then all of a sudden, he's pushing off.
Yeah.
Pushing off. He's not trying to actively
striking.
hurt you.
Yeah,
he's just
okay.
Get away from me type of thing. And
see.
so, okay, now we really have to get
But if
him
he
under
tries to
control.
strike you, you can.
Then we could, obviously you could defend yourself for sure.
Wow.
But that was a crazy. It's funny because that's the first one that popped in my mind because that was one that reminded me, hey, don't take everyone for what they look like.
Don't underestimate
Don't
people.
underestimate people. Yeah.
Yeah.
You really don't.
You ever see that video of that lady being pulled over from the van? And then she comes out, like, she's in the van, right? And she steps out and pulls out a big butcher knife, like this. Like
I've never seen
a foot
that
away.
one, but I've seen some crazy
And
ones.
the cop just lights her up, And it's just like, he underestimated that she was someone that could threaten his life.
I saw this one where this one guy pulled out a gun, and there was 2 cops, and he was faster than the cops. He shot and killed both of them.
Oh, my God.
The second one managed to pull his gun out, and he shot a couple rounds, but a couple shots, but he missed.
Yeah.
And then that was like a really hard video to watch.
Jeez.
Yeah,
So
I've seen those.
that's also, it's a scary job. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like your life was in danger?
Yes.
Yeah.
We went to this DV call. It was my call again. It was my call again because I was like you. I was trying to impress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was taking almost every call I could. I was out on my own, and it was a DV call, and it was the guy was in the apartment with a gun and was not allowing her to leave. So now we're going code 3. We want to make sure she's safe.
So DV is domestic violence.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Domestic violence, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a domestic violence call. We're showing up, and so we get another phone call from 911 saying basically she called in again, and she said that he left in an orange truck. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so she's separated from him. The problem is she lied to us, and he was still in the apartment.
You probably told her to say that, huh?
And so when I went in, my partner was circulating in the parking lot because now we can slow it down. Now we can let's find the truck. We've had them separated. She's telling us he's away from the firearm and he doesn't have it, so she has it in the house. So I go to the door to make contact with her. She lets me in like really slow. I go, oh, okay, hey, we're calling, we're here for you, type of thing. So I could feel in the back of my neck and my hair's kind of good out. I was like, something's not right here. Mm-hmm. So I asked for my partner, go ahead and 45 minutes. Go ahead and meet me back at the apartment. Meet me at the apartment. We're gonna go inside and try to find if he's in here hiding, because I didn't get the right feel from her. She was just, oh yeah, like kind of cracking the door open a little bit, not letting me all the way in. Mm-hmm. She finally lets me in, and I crossed the threshold. And this is the one where I knew God was protecting me because it could have gone bad. I crossed the threshold, and my partner's coming up right behind me. And we look around, and she's still talking, and she's like beat white, like afraid of something. And I look over, and the couch starts moving. He's underneath a blanket with the firearm in his hand.
What the heck?
I got chills.
He could have easily pulled that trigger. And I don't know why. I think he just got scared. He was just trying to hide. He was hoping that we weren't going to come in. But then at that point, we're like, oh, okay, get your hands up. So we're, holster out and everything. So that was a close call. And then there was another. I mean, there's been several close calls, but that's the first one that pops in my head. And the other one was we were clearing a house, and my partner. You're supposed to go in with 2 people at all times. That for the most part, you want to do that. Veteran officers sometimes they know their limits, so they do things outside of, and then us little rookies freak out. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. It was one of those calls where he came through the front of the house. I was watching the back, And I see him through the window. I'm like, dude, you're in the house without me. You're clearing the house by yourself. So I'm popping on the radio like, dude, what are you doing? And what are you doing? And I decide, I make the decision. I holster up. I jump over the wall into the backyard to meet up with him so that we can clear the house together, because that's the safest way to do. Well, when I get to the backyard, I pull out again, and I'm going to go inside, and I make myself known, hey, and he sees me, and he's opening the sliding glass door. All of a sudden, I see something in the corner of my eye start moving, and we're looking for a guy with another, firearm, and so we're like, on edge.
High alert.
Yeah, high alert. We're looking like any type of movement, and I look over, and I've got this movement happening over there, and then, oh, crap, I've got a pile of stuffed animals start moving, and I see some skin. I was like, oh crap, he's right there. So we're like screaming on the radio, I got one, So, I mean, that was another one. I was like, oh crap. And he kind of got chewed out for going into the threshold without another backup unit. And then I was kind of chewed out too, but I was like, you kind of did the right thing, because he was doing the wrong thing. He was kind of going in by himself, but so that was another
your
one.
adrenaline must be pumping. You
Like,
feel it in your throat?
Yeah.
Yeah? There's a
No, because when I'm telling the story, I like remember it. So it's like, what I mean?
Like even there though, with your adrenaline, you could feel it in your throat.
Yeah. And then
I bet.
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah. And then afterwards you get the adrenaline dump and you feel all tired. Okay, let's go get something to eat.
And how much is a typical shift like for you guys?
For myself at that time, it was 5/8. So you were working 8-hour shifts.
That's not bad. I mean, 5/8 of pure adrenaline.
And then at one time, it was 5/8 and then went to 4/10s pretty quick. So
okay.
Yeah. So it was a 10-hour shift.
Wow.
Typically.
I have a question. So you said that you were accepting calls, so you can reject calls?
No, you can jump on people's calls, but if the way that dispatch comes out is like, any unit available, I've got an active shooter, blah, blah. And then they just say what they have. And then the first unit to come in, 4 Adam 27,
Okay.
then that would be, okay, you are incident command. Once you're the first person who took the call, accepted it, that means it's your call.
More responsibility in a sense.
It's your responsibility unless you
Are there some
pass it off to
cops that
someone
kind of
else.
like 7 Adam 27? Yeah, you're like wait until someone else gets it. Like what's the what's like?
I still haven't finished this coffee and donut.
And he just acts like his hands are full.
Oh, it drives us crazy.
you
It
guys
drives
know?
me crazy.
Is there
Like,
certain cops where they take their time answering that call?
they never take a call. It's always them backing up. Hey, you want me to meet you there? Do you
Really?
need a supplement? Of course I need a supplement, dude. Come on. It's crazy. Yeah, no, it's kind of annoying, but yeah, they skirt the line. You know the ones that skirt the line, and you know the ones that are hard chargers. So the hard chargers you kind of stick around with, because I want to back someone up like that, because I know he's going to back me up.
Yeah.
But then if you have someone who's coming, and it is a thing, someone coming on your call, you can hear their number and you'll be like,
You memorize numbers.
yeah. You're like, dang, this guy doesn't like to work. I'm going to have to do everything. So then you send a text to one of the guys and like, hey, can you come with me on this call? I have so-and-so. And they're like, oh crap, you have so-and-so, I'm coming. Because they know that they're slacking.
That's cool.
So, you're a female police officer, obviously. Is there any?
If there's any question.
Is there any bias, or is there any? Because for a long time, police officers were all male, right? For like 100 years, and then for the past 100 years, it's been both. But I'm sure there's a bias. Do you ever feel that? You personally, being a female police officer, what is your experience as being, a female as well?
That's a good question to bring up, because for me, I didn't see myself as different, and obviously, I mean, I'm different, but I didn't see myself as what I'm trained to do, I can do exactly what that guy can do. Except for, obviously there's strength limits.
Yeah, the physical.
Yeah, and you need to know,
Yeah.
and that's funny because they actually teach you in the academy, you need to know your physical limits, whether you're a female or a male. You need to know what you can and cannot do. So I was so focused on that, that I just wanted to do a good job, and I was just like, kind of oblivious to any type of bias that I recognized. I mean, they would throw little shots, but if they throw shots at you, it's because they like you. So
You just throw shots back.
you should throw shots back.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's guys who are always flirting on any female cops that come around, and you just roll your eyes. They're like, really?
Yeah.
And then the guy next to you is like, I know, he's such a jerk. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, so you have that group. You don't trust a lot of people, but the people you do trust, you trust completely. And so you get some really good, close folks who are on the same page. They just want to do a good job. They know that you work hard and they work hard too. So it's no longer, you don't feel like there's a bias, if that's what I mean. It's like you do your job,
Yeah.
you're squared away, you've got something to give to our,
So
what I
what do
mean?
you do in the situation where you're with a suspect that's way stronger than you, and your backup's 2 minutes out? What do you do in that situation as a female?
Your verbal judo is your priceless tool right there. You want to make sure you buy yourself time with any way possible, and so what you want to do is kind of build a small rapport with that person, whatever means possible, and just bide your time and kind of downplay what's going on, what's really happening. Like what's really happening right now is actually you're our main suspect for domestic violence that happened 2 blocks down, and I'm going to be arresting you for a felony.
Yeah.
But I'm by myself, and so now we're just going to talk about the facts that you're a Raiders fan and they suck this year. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Like you really just
He's like,
totally.
oh, yeah. Hey, did you see that? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And-
then, all right,
and-
get on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Do they kind of flip the switch once they see the backup arrive? They're like, oh, wait, what's happening?
Yes.
Yeah?
You can see them tense up, and then you make a
bet.
plan. So it's not a aggressive, not an aggressive stance. Like, oh, you're always gonna choose violence. No, there's a time and a place where you need to know where that line is, where you have to protect your life. And I'm gonna go home tonight, and whatever
It's
means
either
possible.
you or them.
Right.
In some cases.
In some cases,
kill.
well, there's
Kill or be killed.
if someone were to tell you 1 in 100 people that you're going to meet today is going to assault you, how would you act? You would watch people's hands. If someone were to tell you 100 people are going to walk through the room right now and one of them is going to assault you, how would you
And you don't know
look
which
at
one.
exactly? How would you look at each person? And then people say, "Oh, well, you're
That's a very good point because, I mean, we got to understand as civilians that they're constantly dealing with people
Right.
that, especially in today's culture, don't necessarily trust the police or want police.
Or respect them. You know?
Yeah.
Well, because
Yeah.
it's not cool to be a cop, right? It's not in the culture, like in the TV. I'm not a snitch. I'm not a narc.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that really sheds light onto like what you guys go through on a daily, where in our minds you're pulling up to my house, harassing me. You're a jerk cop. No, this person is making sure that they're able to go home, and they have to diffuse whatever situation
Right.
comes up. So.
And everyone
That's a
has a
good point.
story. Everyone says, "Oh, I'm the innocent one," but you've got so many calls, and I've experienced it where you thought the person you were dealing with was the victim, and it turned out no. after some chatting and stuff and some admissions, she's the one that assaulted him. And so you have these preconceived notions based off of what people look like. I mean, I remember a case that I was dealing with. There was a registered nurse, and I thought she was a victim of domestic violence. And I was, that's the, and I was fairly new, so I was just soaking in her testimony, and I was like, oh, that's terrible. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Tell me how that made you feel and all this stuff. And for me, I was like getting to feel like, okay, this person has been assaulted. She's the victim, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out she ended up confessing that she was the one who assaulted him, and he was the victim, and he had marks to show, and he had bruises, and we had alternative witnesses and people saying how she's got a violent temper. And that for me threw me. I was like, wait, what? Wow. So that was another lesson I learned, is like, I can't judge somebody for their body and how much strength they have. I can't judge this person for
based off their sex,
based off of
their title
and their title and the way they're well put together. You can't just judge and say, oh, this person is the victim. That person's a cholo, and that person's the one who did the crime. Well, he's the one who was actually, the victim. So.
There was this was years ago, but I was in a toxic relationship. The same chick from the Jamba Juice story. I don't know if you guys watched that podcast. Oh, you watched it?
Yeah, I did.
Same girl. So cops were always getting called when I lived with her. And one time, I don't even remember what she was mad about, but I was trying to get to work, and I was in the shower. And she managed to open
what were you doing in the shower?
The door.
Taking a shower?
She managed to open the door with a butter knife. She had a butter knife, and she opened the curtain. She's like, "We're gonna talk about this now." Jeez. And I'm like, "Let me take a shower." Jamba Juice. And this is before the Jamba Juice. Oh. This is I want to say maybe 2 years before Jamba Juice happened. Anyway, so long story short. I got out of the shower. I was trying to get dressed so I could go to work. She started swinging at me. And at this point, I was already aggravated. So I started to move, and I was like, come on, let me see if you can land one. And I kept moving, and she kept missing.
And you're soaking wet.
Or she wasn't making direct hits, and that was making her even more mad. So she was still holding the butter knife. She threw the butter knife at me. And she broke. There was a mirror behind me, and she broke the whole mirror. She started throwing stuff. She was screaming. She would scream like if someone was killing her. And then you just hear this big knock on the door. Boom, 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 boom. And it was the sheriff's department. And so I ran to open the door. And when I opened the door, they rushed me. They put me up against the wall, they cuffed me, and one of the cops was like, "You like to put your hands on women, huh?" And I'm like, "Dude, I didn't put my hands on her." He's like, "Yeah, the neighbors called the cops. They said you were beating her." And I was like, "I didn't put my hands on her at all." And he cuffed me. They put me in the back seat of the car, and this other cop came, and he's like, "What happened?" I told him what happened. He said, the neighbors said that they could hear you hitting her. I said, I didn't touch her. She was screaming at me. I was trying to walk away. I need to go to work. But I knew how she would get when she was really upset. Not even the cops being there. She was just always going to be herself. So I had this I was calm because I knew that her true colors were going to come out eventually.
She's going to show them.
Yeah. So I was like, dude, listen to me. This girl is crazy. Okay, she's crazy. She screams. She yells. He said, "Who broke the mirror?" I said, "She did. She threw a butterfly knife at me." And then, so he walks away, and I can hear her screaming in the apartment, at the cops. She's screaming at the cops, the sheriffs or deputies. And one of them comes out. He was in there for about 5 minutes. He comes back out. The same guy I was talking to. He opens the door and he takes the cuffs off of me and he goes, "Wow, that girl is wild." I was like, I told you. And then here they're bringing her out and she's cuffed. And I'm like, she's getting arrested. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, I'm like, for what? Disturbing the peace and criminal damage. She admitted it. And then, so yeah, they took her to jail.
At least she's honest, bro. That's one thing you want to, give her praise for.
That's the thing, that when the cops got involved, she never lied. She was just so intense, but she never lied or said that I did anything bad. Because I've heard stories like that.
Yeah.
Where the girl would make things up. She never did anything like that. She was crazy, but she wasn't that crazy. But the cops right away, when I opened the door, they didn't know what was going on, and right away they assumed that I was the one that was causing trouble.
The idea is, right in that instance, I would have done the same thing, as separate the parties and then find out what's going on. So I would have cuffed both of them up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. After hearing all the loud.
So that's one thing too that I wanted to bring up. Like, a lot of issues that happen on stops are people that do not want to cooperate.
Yeah.
And a lot of those problems could be eliminated very quickly if they would just sit down, put their hands behind their back, whatever, let the cops figure out what's going on.
Right.
I mean, it goes a whole lot deeper than, just saying that, because there's so many instances where, power's been abused, racial profiling has happened. Mm-hmm. But I see, and I've talked to a lot of my friends who were raised to say, you know what, just listen to what they're saying. Mm-hmm. Just say, yes, sir, okay. If you're not the one that's, causing the trouble, just follow that, because if you don't, they could kill you. They could hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just cooperate.
Just cooperate. And so, what do you think about that? Is that a fair assessment, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very fair assessment, actually. I was thinking of one call that we had in particular when you were just saying that, and it was actually fairly recently, so it kind of sheds light to how we're doing policing nowadays in this culture. And it was a simple traffic stop. Lieutenant was on his way in. Some guy was speeding beyond belief, and so it was like, yep, well, I'm definitely pulling you over. So we go out to meet and help him out on an off-jurisdiction traffic stop. And the guy simply would not show us his hands. He was sitting in the driver's seat, whatever, and he's screaming, COVID, COVID. And for that moment, we're like, why is he saying, he doesn't want us to touch him. He didn't want us to touch him, so he would scream, COVID, I've got COVID.
Oh, he has COVID.
He's saying, I've got COVID. And so
what do you do?
So, no, he's not showing us his hands. That's a safety thing. It's I don't know what you have. I don't care what kind of disease you have. Unfortunately, I have to do my job, and I don't know. I need to make it safe. I need to make it safe. So he wasn't listening to commands, nothing like that. And so, yeah, we ended up pulling him out of the car. But in that minute, when he was saying that was the first time that I've had someone claim that to get out of.
How'd you get him out of the car?
We pulled him out.
Was the door unlocked?
Yeah, we opened the door and pulled him out.
Oh, okay.
He resisted. He didn't listen to our commands.
Okay. But he left the door unlocked?
Well, he had the door unlocked.
Did you physically take part in pulling him out?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, you start with, you're asking them, sir, go ahead and step out of the car for me, because number one, you're not showing me your hands, so sir, I need you to see your okay, sir. Yeah. Raise your hands. You're only gonna ask that so many times.
I've been pulled over, and I carry a firearm, and literally every time that I've been pulled over, and the cops whether it be me speeding or not signaling, minor traffic violations. I haven't been pulled over for anything crazy, illegal like that. And so I've always said,
officer, I got a gat.
Been polite and be like, yeah, I have a firearm.
That's great.
In the holster between my seats or on my hip. I'm like, okay, no problem. Can you go ahead and grab it with your right hand like this, and just hand it over or put it on your dash. I'm going to step away, go and put it on your dash. When I come back, just leave it there. And, I've done that. they'll grab it, put it on the top of the car, or they'll, you know, take it back with them, whatever. And then more times out of none, they wouldn't even give me a ticket. They're all right, you know, be safe, you know, make sure you don't do this again. Give me my gun back. And they were completely nice. And I think it was because I respected them
Yeah.
as an authority,
Yeah.
whether as saying no. And I see a lot of people that are online challenging and throwing the laws out and not wanting to, you know, this is a free to carry state, you know, and I mean, if that's how you want to live your life.
Or have you seen the ones on YouTube where a cop will pull somebody over and they have a paper where they say, I don't have to talk to you.
Yeah.
Or they don't
hold
even
it
put
up.
their windows down.
Yeah,
It's
like
just so disrespectful.
why, dude? Like,
It's like if you want to live your life out of conflict and having that argumentative, you know, vibes all the time with law enforcement and other people, I mean, that's on you. Eventually, you know, they're going to get their way.
people hate the
Right?
cops so much, but when stuff goes down, who do you call?
Yeah.
Right.
So I just want to go out and say I'm pro police, you know. I
Oh yeah,
support
back the blue,
So,
all the
too.
way.
you know,
Sweet.
I mean, we didn't get you on here to be like, hey, you're horrible for being a cop. No, we got you on here because I think people need to realize the stuff that police deal with every day,
Yeah.
and that it's not that you guys hate people, but you have to assess each situation the same. This person could kill me.
Yep.
This person could harm me. And I have kids. I have a husband.
And society needs structure.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have authority. You know, if there was no authority, then everything would just be out of control.
Right.
That's so very true.
And it's just so sad that there's just, I mean, it's common sense. And common sense just isn't very common now.
And you know the thing too is you cannot teach common sense.
No.
You can't teach it. But
We wouldn't have a job.
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I remember this one ride along though.
Sorry.
I went on another ride along, and there was a guy, same guy I went with, but his partner, or not his partner. He had his own car, but they were always like, they always arrived to calls together. Is that like a thing?
Yeah.
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 So this guy, I met him, and he was a pretty fit dude, bald, very energetic. You know, he looked like a good cop. Like, dude, you know, you do not want to mess with this guy. You know, like he'll take you down. So I hear in the news something crazy went down in Moreno, and then my buddy comes to get a haircut. I was cutting out of my house, and he's like, "You see the news?" And I was like, "I heard something." He's all, "Yeah, that was." He said his name. You know, that was so and so. I was like, "Really?" So what happened was, and I, it takes a while for them to release the footage to the public of those incidents. But he had told me what happened before I even saw the video. So the video came out like I want to say a couple months later. But what he did was there was a guy running around on the street, walking around with a rifle, holding it out like that. And the cops were like trying to like get him to surrender and drop his gun.
Hit him with his car.
He ran.
Yeah.
He hit him with this car, bro. So he said that he was walking, and he gets his car, and he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna hit this guy, and he speeds up, and he hits him through a wall,
Yeah.
and
But you know the story of that is he was actually wrapping off rounds as he was
the
walking.
air, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
so
shooting off in the
that
air.
was totally
Yeah.
justified.
yeah, I saw the video later, and I was just like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I think that's so cool. You know, that he was able to stop this guy without firing his weapon.
Yeah.
And the guy survived.
He
Yeah.
thought of an outside perspective, out of the box
Yeah.
solution.
And when I met that guy, I knew like this guy was like, you know, you don't want to mess with this guy. And here's the same guy just like ramming some dude through the wall to stop him. Where I think most cops would have just, you know, pulled the trigger.
I was just thinking like relatable stuff where people go through the same things and how they kind of maneuver through life. And I'm glad we got to talk about, you know, reaching out and being vulnerable with God about certain things as a pastor's kid and as a church kid, but also through dating relationships. Like and through career choices and stuff. Everyone has their own like destiny that God has specifically made for you, And I would just encourage people out there to not put themselves in the same box as their parents, because it's so easy to do that. Or not even in the same box as people in the church. Like, I have to rise to this level. I have to be like this, or I have to have that type of faith. Your relationship with God is so personal. And it's like, I'm just urging people to get that personal with God, where he is the one that guides you into what your destiny is, not your parents, not your peer pressure or anything in the church that you're trying to rise up to. Don't get me wrong, having leadership to guide you is good, but I had to break through some things that were stereotypical to pastors' kids, and people in my life who I looked up to came to me and said, why are you doing this? Why are you getting into law enforcement? You're not going to find a man of God to marry someday. You're going to be spending your time in the career, and you're not going to marry and have a future that God wants for you. And that would shake me, and I would go again in my secret and quiet place. On the outside, I have this strong facade, like, oh, don't worry, pastor. And it was a pastor, and there was several people that told me these things. And I'm going to pray about it, and I know this is what God wants me to do. And I had this strong face, but in the quiet corner of my closet, I would pour it out to God, like, what am I doing? This person who I look up to, this person who is a pastor, is telling me and warning me against these things. Like, what am I doing? Is this really what you want me to do? Is this really your will? And I would lay the fleece out again, like like Gideon. And then he's so faithful to confirm what he wants us to do. And what I've chosen, I haven't chosen a job. I've chosen a career. I've chosen a life. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
And I knew that's what I was getting into. And so I would encourage people who are looking for direction and they're trying to get into a career and they're not sure if it's God's will, be so vulnerable with God about your feelings, how your insecurities are, how your doubts are. Ask him to prove himself to you, and he will, because it says in the Bible, knock, the door will be answered. Seek, and you will find. So you have to seek truly his will, and so many ways. And I've told Roman this before, my husband. I told him about the story, and I was like...
So you did get married.
Yes, I did.
Which is an amazing story in itself before you go into.
And he's also a man of God.
So
Yes, he is.
Double A.
So Roman was on this podcast. He was like episode 4, I believe. But we talked about the addictive power of heroin. And, you know, Roman's testimony is just amazing on what God brought him out of.
Yes.
And, you know, he was a heroin, you know, he did heroin for many years, and he sold drugs, and he did all this crazy stuff in his life.
He was a criminal. He ended up marrying a cop.
And that right there is
God.
a testimony of what God can do in anyone's life.
Yes.
I mean,
It also goes to show, like, God has a sense of humor.
yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
he does.
and it's just like, how can you expect somebody from that lifestyle to be with somebody from this lifestyle? You can't expect that, but with God, anything can happen.
Yep.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so
Yes,
I just
can.
wanted to give a good shout out to Roman Moreno.
Yes, absolutely.
Moreno.
You have to say
Moreno.
Moreno.
I'm not gonna fake who I am.
Coconut. Oh, Coke.
I'm
Embrace.
American.
Embrace your
I'm
coconut.
American too, but I can
Embrace your
still say Moreno.
Embrace
No.
your coconut.
I'm Hispanic.
You're not.
Yes.
Embrace your coconutism.
Crazy.
Okay,
Roman
Chavez.
Moreno.
I'm
Hey,
sorry, I keep
Chavez.
looking up there because I get distracted.
That's
with
fine.
the view. All right.
Gabriel.
You can cut that out, right, dude?
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I wanted to touch on that because I know that there might be church kids that are going through the same situation, and they feel, and they're not going to say this out loud, but they feel like they have to measure up to their parents' legacy. They have to, like, somehow be that powerful figure one day, and that's what they're supposed to do. And
Everyone's calling is different.
yeah. And literally it is true. And so I would encourage people, like, God is not this, like, taskmaster that, oh, you have been born in this family and how dare you not follow the legacy. No, you are following the legacy. Slow it down. Get to know God and his person.
Amen.
Get to know who he is, his character. And he knows you. Like, I was a tomboy growing up. I'm an adrenaline junkie. He knows that I'm fit for where I'm at. And I grew up in the family that I did, and with the structure that I did, that was allowing me to have this strong moral code and ethics. And I give that, all to God and from my parents as well. And so that kind of guided me into where I'm at. But I'm just encouraging people to, if you're wondering where your direction is, where your channel of life is going to be, everything is thrown at the feet of Christ. Everything is thrown at his feet. Anytime I would wonder and someone would say something that would make me feel a certain way about what I was doing, I would just go into my closet and just bawl my eyes out, and what am I doing? And I need confirmation, and I need to know this is you.
So
and every time he was faithful.
So when you say he's faithful, for people that don't understand that, how has God shown you and answered those questions that you've had? Give us an example.
I'll give you an example. So that one night when I told you that the person that I looked up to, who's a pastor, told me, dude, I really care about you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? You're not going to get a man of God. So I went home and I was like, dang, man, those are some tight words. And I'm concerned, this is a pastor and he hears from God. And, I need to rethink this. And so I went to God and was like, God, what do I do? And so, the very next day, I got a call from Doug Marcotte. And I swear, God moves through people. And he spoke to me and he's like, look. And it was a call that was out of place. Like, I wasn't expecting it. It was a call that was just out of place. And he's like, look, I want you to know that your destiny is held by God and no one else can hold it for you. Just put your trust in him and he will guide you. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to be a good cop. And I was like, that's what I needed to hear, though. Doug was a pastor.
He was a pastor.
Yeah.
At one point, and that he was a cop too.
Yeah.
So as a cop too, I've been wanting to ask you, have you ever had the opportunity to minister to someone?
Yeah, I
Really?
have. I really have. And it was moments in time where God separated and allowed me to do what I had to do without getting any public repercussions. And, the thing is, you have to be really careful because obviously you can't.
You gotta keep it professional.
Yes,
obviously,
you must keep it professional.
Workplace, right?
But on a one-on-one basis, I was able to speak into people's lives and minister to them at a point where I didn't think I would have that opportunity, and God made it a way. And there's so many examples I can give you. I was able to pray for people, and you're not in the moment. It's like it's between you and them, and it's important that you put on a public. You don't want to be seen, doing certain things. But God made a way. It's like he parted the Red Sea. There was no one around us. When there just had been a crowd of people, all of a sudden the guy started. It was, at the terminal. He's opening up about his situation. And then I'm feeling this urge. I need to pray for this guy. And we talk about, he's asking about God. He opens the door for that and we discuss it. And then all of a sudden I get this urge to pray for him. And the crowd that was there moments ago is no longer there. So now they're not gonna see me hugging this guy, praying for him. And you want to keep it professional. So the concern was, I'm going to maintain what I have to maintain. But in that moment, this is what he needed, and God made a way for it to happen. He ended up coming to church later and praying, and you know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
I don't know what happened to him since then, but that was just one example. That was just one example, and then there's been examples where I know this person is going to jail for a really long time, and I know what they did is going to probably send them there for a really long time if they're convicted, and so this is probably the last time that they get to speak with someone about what they've done in their whole life and kind of putting things into perspective. And I just kind of what are you doing with your life? I just kind of let them kind of share their emotions.
I feel like God's pressing on me to say this. So people can listen to your story and people can say like, wow, she has a calling, she's special, and that's why you are who you are, and that's why you're able to see and understand what you do, right? But earlier you shared how you went through your rebellious stage and how, but it wasn't until you went into that secret, quiet place with God and you poured out your heart to God. So it was you humbling yourself.
Yes.
It was through you humbling yourself before God that's when God gave you discernment and allowed you to see.
Yes.
Right? And now you know what path to follow.
Yes.
So I've had people tell me like, wow, David, you are a man of God. And I know that you're one of the real ones. And I'm like, bro, no, it's nothing special about me.
Right, yeah.
Trust me. Like I fall, you know what I mean? I fall, but it's through the grace of God
Yes.
that I'm here. But because I want God and I get down on my knees and I cry out to God.
Yes.
And only when I'm genuine, that's when I see God move.
Yes.
Anybody can do that. Anybody. If you just really humble yourself before God, you surrender,
You got it.
and you will begin to see God use you in powerful ways that you
got
never
it.
even imagined that you could be used. And it's almost like either you discover things about yourself through God that you never knew that you could do before, or God just gives you a gift.
Yes.
You know, I don't know how that works, but I've caught myself like, wow, like, did I really just do that? You know,
Yep.
but it's all God though. It's not me. So I just want, if people are watching this and people might feel like, well, yeah, of course, you know, she is the way that she is, or she's blessed the way that she is because she has a specific calling that I don't have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
I
she
don't-
has a family or she was raised a certain way. No,
Right. And no, anybody can have
Right.
this, because there's people that have grown up in church, people that I know personally that had great parents, and their lives right now, they're just so messed up, jacked up people. You know, I know one individual that comes to mind right now who's really messed up on drugs, and he can't seem to get off of drugs, you know, and his parents are great people.
Yeah.
You know, so it's choices, decision. But when you make that decision to serve God, then that's when you begin
Yep.
to see.
When you humble yourself. And for me, the most humble portion for me was going in every day knowing that for my job, I could lose my life today, or my comrades could lose their life. That was so humbling for me that it made me so hungry for God and his guidance and his will and his discernment, because I knew his wisdom was going to get me through. So for me, that was what drew me closer to God, was knowing every day I'm putting myself in that position and things are real, you know, things are going to get real. So there's nothing more humbling than walking into a building knowing that you're looking at a dead body and you have to deal with the circumstances that you have, and you're dealing with a suicide, or you're dealing with death, and you're dealing with like terrible things that people do to each other on a daily basis. For me, that is really humbling, because I know I'm human. I'm gonna die someday. Death is constantly in my face every
Right.
single day. That the possibility of eternity is right there. So for me, that was humbling, and that draws me closer to God and knowing him more. So, and part of me thinks that my stubbornness, you know, because God knows me. God knows me so well. He needs to, like, he knows that he's got to slap me across the head, like, hey, you know. So I remember like praying every day before shift, and I still do, because right now I'm in a different capacity, but praying every day before shift, I plead the blood of Jesus over my life, over my family, over my comrades today as we go. You know, in that part humbles you. So if you can keep yourself in that state of being humble and knowing who you are compared to God, he's going to use you. He's going to give you gifts. He's going to guide you and direct you, but only when you humble yourself.
I think the scripture, pride comes before the fall, probably has so much more weight
Yeah.
as a cop
Oh my gosh.
because you know you
get
have
cocky,
to maintain
you get
that,
cocky.
that humble spirit,
Jeez.
you know. And if you're prideful,
You're
you're gonna find yourself in more situations than not.
Because if you lax up, you get prideful, you lax up on your safety.
Yep.
It's life and death right there.
Yeah.
But did want to give a shout out to my husband because
Go ahead.
I want people to know that like you don't have to be in a cookie cutter relationship. It's you know God directed it and guided us, and yeah, we came from different backgrounds and stuff, but He is the perfect person for me, and God knew that, and so it's kind of I want people to have hope that God knows what He's doing and just trust Him fully.
Yeah. God's plan for your life shines so much more with Him. And the reason that is because you could be a cop that was a church kid, but that doesn't have as much weight as you're a cop with someone like him. That testimony is going to take you further. You know, the fact that he's your husband, you know, your testimony support each other.
Yeah.
And it just makes your testimony even that
Well,
much
God
stronger,
God has created a new creature out of both of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In different ways.
Also, I want you to know that both of you, he's not there. I've told him this. You guys are such an encouragement for me because every church, there's no perfect church, right? And you're going to have like the people that are kind of not into it, but then the people that are really hungry for God. And watching you guys' testimony has kept me there. And I'm being serious.
That's cool.
Because
Praise God.
I've looked at you guys and I'm like, okay, God's here. You know, God is here.
Praise God.
You
Wow.
know, so you guys are like one of the solid people in the church, at least in my opinion, or that I've recognized where you guys are solid. You know, like, and that encourages me so much watching you guys' testimony. So just be encouraged and know that you have a heavy impact on people, both you and your husband. And I really appreciate that. And I thank God for you guys.
Praise God. Thank you.
So,
like I said, it's all God.
So I want to thank you for coming on here, taking time to share your life, you know, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And sharing all these stories. I'm sure you have plenty more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
in the moment, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. So if you guys enjoyed this podcast with Mariah, go ahead and like it, share it, subscribe. If you do want to support this podcast, you could donate. The link's down below. Feel free to do that. And we will catch you guys later.
Peace out.